So just as a quick note, there actually was not supposed to be an upload today. I even tweeted about that yesterday. Which, by the way, if you haven't followed me on Twitter, you should go follow me. Link in the description below. You see, I have to turn in some college stuff in an hour or two by the time this video is uploaded, so I wasn't really planning on uploading today at all. Well, that was the case until Netflix announced that the next movie in the Cloverfield franchise was dropping right after the Super Bowl. Being a big fan of the Cloverfield franchise, I had to see the movie. Obviously. If you want to hear my review, it's fairly simple. The movie was incredible. Go watch it. It had its flaws, sure, like underdeveloped characters and a few strange dialogue choices, but besides that, I thought the film was just amazing, really. Anyway, it was about 1 AM that I went on search on the worldwide internet for people's thoughts on the movie, and to my shock, a lot of people didn't like the film. I was left in utter confusion as to why so many people hated it, and decided I should give my 2 cents on the matter, and here I am now. Also, I know that this movie isn't horror, and the Cloverfield franchise as a whole isn't really horror, but 10 Cloverfield Lane and this one are technically thrillers, and thrillers is in the horror category. I'm stretching here, I know, but anyway, be warned, there may be spoilers ahead. Roll the intro. Before we go any further, let me just discuss the concept of a fanboy versus a fan. To keep this part as short as possible, a fanboy is essentially a diehard fan that can't really acknowledge any faults in a piece of work in their fandom. In contrast, a fan is someone who does the complete opposite. They can like or dislike any piece of work in their preferred fandom, or piece of work in that fandom. Regarding Cloverfield, I feel like I fit on the border of a fan and fanboy. Not a fanboy, but still a major supporter and huge fan of the Cloververse. With that in mind, as I continue to discuss the Cloverfield paradox, it may sound like I'm nothing more than just a deranged fanboy. But hear me out, I'm really not, I swear. I know this movie is not perfect, again, it has its flaws, but I by no means think it is as much of a crime to cinema as people make it out to be. So without further ado, on to the Cloverfield paradox. The Cloverfield paradox was first announced February 4th, 2018, and released that same day after the Super Bowl on Netflix. This movie is similar to 10 Cloverfield Lane in the form that both movies weren't actually part of the Cloververse when they first started. Paramount and Bad Robot, the puppet masters in this case, bought the scripts to both movies, 10 Cloverfield Lane originally titled The Cellar, and the Cloverfield paradox originally titled God Particle. After the scripts were bought, they were reworked, given a few new scenes, and we have the final products. Both of which, in my opinion, are great additions to the Cloververse. Moving forward, let's talk about the Cloverfield paradox. As a brief synopsis, the Cloverfield paradox follows a diverse group of scientists / astronauts from around the world in a space station that carries a particle accelerator. While they are on their voyage, the world is on the brink of war, as the world's energy resources are running low. It's this lack of resources that actually sends these astronauts into space. They are trying to fire the particle accelerator so that they could potentially create a renewable source of energy that would theoretically be limitless. However, upon successfully firing the machine for the first time, they accidentally create a ripple effect that somehow makes the Earth disappear. It's up to the crew to find out what's going on and how to unravel the true mystery behind this whole situation. Throwing up another spoiler warning here, just in case, so that I can continue talking about the film. Now, I won't talk about everything that happened in the movie at risk of this video becoming too long, but I want to talk about all the backlash along my opinion regarding the film, and some theories I have. So let's actually start with the backlash. Initially, everyone was excited and interested for this new Cloverfield movie, mainly because it came out of nowhere, so intrigue for this movie was very high. Of course, many people saw it, and of course, a lot of them hated it, calling it a waste of their time. Which brings me here. I really want to find out why so many people hated it. Just to reiterate, by the way, I'm okay with criticism. It's fine if you didn't like the movie. But the hate towards the movie just really baffles me. A common complaint I kept hearing was that the movie doesn't make any sense. And they're right, it doesn't. Because it shouldn't. If that was a bit confusing, allow me to explain. The particle accelerator used in the movie didn't erase Earth like I said in the synopsis, but rather it sent them to a completely different universe. But not in the conventional sense. As conventional as universe hopping is, I suppose. It's really not as cut and dry as Rick and Morty or Flash, as some may suggest. In those shows, dimension hopping is relatively simple, with Rick's perfected portal gun allowing him to travel through universes without fracturing time or space, and with Cisco or Barry being able to hop to a different universe practically at will, again without fracturing time or space. In this movie, the particle accelerator doesn't just send the crew to a different universe, but it also fractures time and space. Essentially, my point here is that unlike those other shows I previously mentioned, this was the first time people have jumped universes in the Cloververse, and it wasn't even intentional. The particle accelerator the group used was only meant to provide limitless power, but it overflowed, sending everyone aboard to a different universe, corrupting the two universes while it hopped universes. To address the complaint that the movie didn't make any sense, again, it's not supposed to. It may seem like a cheap cop-out, and some may attribute it to lazy writing, but in my head, everything strange that happened seemed extremely probable, given what the film already set up. But let me put it this way. Time and space are the two major components that comprise reality, right? So if you fractured both time and space, you're essentially fracturing/warping reality. Which makes things in the movie like the sentient hand, Jensen in the ship's wires, and the wall coming to life make sense. Those things are warped versions of reality, caused by the fact that reality has been warped. Also, for those that complain that this was never explained, it actually was by the character Schmidt. He gave a small line that actually explained the bizarre occurrences in the movie. Hopefully, that covers that complaint, so let's go on to the next. Hey, it's Zero here. Initially, I had like 2 more pages discussing and addressing complaints people had about the movie, but while editing, I realized that I was strapped for time. And I really wanted to get this out before I had to go, turn in my college crap or whatever. So, I'm very sorry. However, if you have any other complaints or general questions, feel free to leave it in the comment below. I'll be sure to try and respond to all of them. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe. That would mean a lot. While most people assume that the Cloverfield paradox is a prequel, and some assume it's even a sequel, I have to say it's neither. Think about it this way. The first Cloverfield takes place in 2008. The technology seen in this movie did not exist then. Abrams and his crew at Bad Robot like to take aspects from real life and incorporate them into the Cloververse. This ranges from conspiracy theories to companies to real-world problems, and even locations in real life. With that in mind, the closest thing we have to a particle accelerator, with the power and potential like the one seen in the movie, is at CERN. The particle accelerator of which isn't scheduled to be completed until 2035. Also, as a side note, the Cloverfield paradox is actually based on the experiments done at CERN. So I feel like this adds some validity to this theory, but that's your opinion. My theory, this movie does not take place in the same universe as the first Cloverfield, or 10 Cloverfield Lane. I believe this movie takes place in a similar universe to that of the first Cloverfield, as some of the events that transpire mirror that of Cloverfield, but it's still its own entity. If you recall, a man in an interview regarding the particle accelerator in the movie said that if the project was successful, it could open tears in reality that could release monsters from another world into our own. So my theory is that the Clover we see at the end of the movie is actually not the Clover from the first film. Taking note of its stature, The first Clover only stood as tall as a skyscraper, whereas this one hits the troposphere, the area where planes travel through and clouds form. There is no chance that that's the same one from the first movie, especially since Abrams confirmed that the Cloverfield monster in the first film actually died, in which case this Cloverfield monster could have leaked into this universe from another. Say I were to make 3 different timelines. Each one represents a different universe. They all start the same, mankind, evolution, but eventually they all divert. One universe was attacked by Clover, but Clover was soon killed thereafter. These are the events that transpire in the first Cloverfield movie. In another universe, they too are attacked by the Cloverfield monster, and again they are able to kill it. However, this brings over the attention of the creature's monitors. Other aliens then come to Earth, furious with the fact that mankind killed one of their babies. These are the events that transpire in 10 Cloverfield Lane. Lastly, there is another universe where the Cloverfield monster lay dormant for the amount of time that it needed to. And as opposed to waking up in 2008, it woke up in 2035, much larger in scale and much more threatening. These are the events that transpire in the Cloverfield paradox. Funny enough, the Cloverfield paradox actually demonstrates that this theory may be possible, as it deals with the possibility of infinite universes. That's all I really have to say about the movie, and not to sound like a broken record, but I thought this movie was great. You're allowed to disagree, and feel free to tell me how I'm wrong down below. If you have any theories of your own, feel free to leave them in the comments. I really want to read them, I like to see what other people think. Round up some discussions if you'd like, just make them respectful, please. Anyway, regular uploads begin tomorrow. Thanks for watching.